What's up, Zox fam? Now we need to talk about cutting your costs. Module gear, I think, is definitely something that a lot of players are really trying to tweak and they're trying to get into now. And one of the biggest things is actually understanding what your costs are. Because I think a lot of players are like, I got to get to my mythic gear. But then when they get to mythic gear, they realize they can't really level any of it. And it's because of the costs, right? It's very, very expensive. So let's actually do some comparing real quick. Now, when we're looking at, like, let's say a level 1 mythic piece versus a level 1 outstanding piece. A level 1 outstanding piece is 6K to level at starting out at base. A level 1 mythic piece is 10K, right? And again, just to identify and clarify, it does not matter if a mythic piece is a 3 bonus or if it's a 2 bonus, it still costs exactly the same. Okay, so that's one thing I just want to kind of throw out there for those that didn't know. Yes, it costs exactly the same, so it doesn't get more expensive. It just costs the same, right? But here's the thing that's going to be the crossroad for a lot of free to play. It's the fact that you need to now start thinking about not just rolling the right piece or getting the piece with the main stat on it that's perfect or right for your character, but now you're starting to consider things like speed tuning or the more optimal things for maybe scaling your damage a little bit, maybe getting a little bit more crit rate or crit damage, whatever it is that you might need in your subs. It is now going to be a very taxing process to try to just do this at Mythics as a free to play. Because the thing is that as you're working your way up, Mythics aren't actually technically required for your entire roster. And I think identifying who really needs Mythics in the beginning versus who doesn't need them is also going to be very important, right? So let's actually take a look here at my Valerian. Everybody comes into my stream and they say, hey man, why do you and how do you shield so much? Like, what is going on? Like, you always have tons of shield, and the only shield character I'm using on my team is my Valerian. Now, whenever they ask and say, hey, can I see her gear, her gear? I think they're expecting to see a whole bunch of mythic gear, or they're expecting to see, like, you know, everything, you know, including the pet, super, super high level. But when they look, you'll see here, I'm still using some epic pieces on her. And these aren't even suboptimal. These are just fixated on the Wellspring set. And then I got a little speed in there, right? But in reality, I'm gonna, once I get some more Wellspring that I wanna equip, I'm gonna be actually taking these speed pieces off so I can make her even slower. And that will give me more healing opportunity within the rotation and shielding as my characters rotate. Now, why am I showing you guys Valerian and not someone else? Well, here's the thing. This is a character that I identified that for her specific role did not need to be on mythic gear for her to do her job, right? So that's one of the things that you're really starting to look at when you're looking at certain characters. Now, when you start looking at your DPS, for example, things change a little bit, right? You're starting to actually consider, okay, well, I got these mythic pieces, let me put them on them, right? Or even like say Dating, right? I'm looking at him and I'm like, okay, I need Dating to hit as hard as possible, right? Whoever your main DPS is if it's your Ramoka, or if it's your Dating, or if it's your, like, whoever it is that you have doing damage or main bossing for you, it is going to be really, really important that you're making sure that those characters are essentially giving you the highest output possible. And this is another reason why we take those characters to 6-star first, because those characters' base stats are going to matter a lot more than taking certain supports up, other than the fact that they have certain amounts of speed on their base. But the thing is that that speed can be made up for, which is much harder to make up for DPS that you don't have the raw base stats for, right? Now, of course, with that, all right, what are you saying, Zox? What is the format, or how should I go about trying to level my gear? So I'll show you guys what exactly I do, okay? So when I'm trying to decide on a piece that I actually want to level, and let's just take these outstanding pieces, for example, I always try to look at the piece and I'll say, okay, I need to create a foundation. And I think that this is the first thing, is understanding what's okay to level and what's really not okay to level. The left side, I think you can be a lot more, I would say, specific, because you're not really fixated on a main stat that kind of fluctuates. You always know that you're going to get an attack percent, defense percent, or HP, I think on this piece. Yeah, HP percent, and then defense on this piece, right? So the main stat never changes on the left side. So it's actually easier to start tweaking substats on this side than it is the left side. The left side is where it's going to be a lot more of a grind, because now you're dealing with varying percentages. And that's not just percentages, but it's also mixed in with flat stats that could also present itself when you're dropping gear and as it's rolling. So with that being the case, I think when you're starting out, your left side is definitely going to be a side that you prioritize first as you're going through your characters and starting to tweak their substats. And what you're really looking for, I would say on a lot of those pieces, because you can have a lot more control on the left side, minimum, you want to try to aim for 3 substats. And this is why I said that even if you are using outstanding gear, you have to consider that mythic gear can still drop with only 2 substats. Now, why is this important? This is important because what this is dictating is how many potential rolls you can get on your pieces of gear, okay? Now, the more substats that are present, so let's see if we can find something with 4 substats on it, right? That's not leveled though. Let's see if we have any with 4 substats that's not leveled, because I think I have one. There we go. All right. So the more substats that are on a piece, the more chances you have to roll into those stat values. So keep in mind that every time you roll at a +3, you basically get a roll into a value, right? So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. That is 5 potential sub rolls that you could be getting on a piece. On a piece that has 4 substats, that's going to be giving you the max roll potential, which means that, let's say, for example, it rolls into crit rate. I could get 5 rolls potentially into crit rate. Now, if this had been a piece that only had, for example, let's actually go back here and go to 3, and it only had 3 substats, this means always I'm only ever going to be able to get 4 rolls into any given stat after I unlock that first one. So that first +3 will be used to unlock a stat, and then the very next one will be used for me to actually roll into those values. So when I'm looking at certain pieces, they end up not really being nearly as worth. And granted, this doesn't mean that you can't get lucky. There's definitely going to be people that got some decent, okay speed rolls on pieces that started out looking like this, right? But when you really are looking at the highest potential of what you can get, the value diminishes, but the cost is the same, right? So that's one of the things that you're starting to kind of look at. And so granted, in the beginning, you're not really thinking about it so much, because really what you're trying to do is just gear your characters enough, making sure they at least have gear at like +9, then you go respectively to +12. Then you're starting to look at the other side. I just need the main stat so I can make it usable. And you really don't have to go so crazy with subs because it's not really required. But I think the more that you're starting to push into Hell, into Inferno, especially, you're now starting to have to consider rotations, having and squeezing the most amount of value you can out of DPS. So that's ultimately how you can go about it. Now, as far as the actual leveling method and how I usually go about actually leveling, I usually try to test the waters with the rolls, right? So let's say, for example, let's do a 3 piece, right? And let's see if we have anything with speed on it. Here, okay, right? So let's take this onslaught piece. These are like pretty garbage flat stats. Like I really don't care for those, but just for the sake of speed, let's see what it does, right? So usually I roll to the +3, right? We obviously know it's gonna unlock another stat, but let's see what the next stat is, because now we're at 12K, 15K, 18K, and it rolls flat attack. Do you keep leveling a piece like this? Probably not. Now, I would say if you're in a scenario where you actually only have that one piece, you can definitely use that piece, make do, and then from there kind of decide what you want to do with it. I think the other thing, and this is a practice that I've kind of learned from playing games like Epic 7, is that if you have a piece and you level it, before you delete it, check and see if there's any other characters that those stats are actually extremely good for them. Because you might have a couple of pieces that end up rolling bad for maybe a DPS that scales off of attack and crit rate, but that piece might be an excellent piece for a bruiser. So these are the type of things that I usually try to identify with a piece before I get rid of it. Now with this piece, attack flat HP, speed that's not rolled, and effect accuracy, this isn't a keeper for me. So I'm gonna recycle this piece, all right? So that's just how you can basically cut your costs as well, because you don't need to be full sending pieces to level 12 because your cost is going up even on outstanding pieces. That's saving me a ton of resources. And then as we get into the things like the 2x event and being able to take the advantage of that for modules, EXP, and GP outposts, That's going to also allow you to gain a little bit more silver. And in that session, which will be the session for a lot of players for the first time, where they'll probably have more silver than they've had from any of their farming sessions so far, you'll actually be able to kind of nitpick a little bit more and kind of rolling subs, right? So avoid trying to go all the way up to see, oh, maybe it might. No, cut it off early. If it doesn't roll into the value right away, depending on how many potential rolls you can get, every time you roll it, just know if it's not rolling into that stat, is again, the value of that roll is only going down, right? Now, with that being said, okay, what about like everything else? Okay, with the left side, that's one thing, but what about the right side? Should you be trying to like min-max and focus that side? Yes, you can to some degree. I think one of the things we do have to acknowledge is that it's just drops, right? Like it does not, and there is no guarantee that you're going to get the piece that you need on this side, and you might just have to make a piece work for the time being. That's perfectly fine. I'm not telling you guys to just trash pieces just because it's not suboptimal on the substats. What I'm saying is when you get to the point of actually rolling those for those subs, don't go like crazy trying to make a piece work that does not have values that are going to actually benefit the character. I think that, again, like I said before, we're just identifying what a lot of players are doing, and from the spender perspective, these players aren't nearly leveling up as many mythic pieces as you think they are because it is expensive. It is about 700,000 Etheria coin to fully level up one mythic piece. So think about that, okay? So I just wanted to get this video out to you guys so that you had some sort of idea, just to kind of talk a little bit more about the actual gear rolling. If you have to roll or run broken sets, that sometimes can be much more efficient. Think about this for speed characters as well. Running broken sets on speed sometimes is okay, because if their only job is to do a specific thing and you're not worried about damage, but you just need them to maybe open, that actually could be a strategy that works in your best interest. So yeah, guys, that's basically going to be that with this one. Let me know what you guys think. Everyone, stay blessed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.